Ever wondered about the man who discovered America? The man, none other than Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus, a name that echoes through the annals of history, was not just a man but an idea, a symbol of exploration and discovery. Born in the bustling port city of Genoa, Italy in 1451, Columbus was destined for a life at sea. The salty air, the vast endless blue, the seagulls' cries, all of these stirred a passion within him, a yearning to explore the world beyond the horizon. From an early age, Columbus was drawn to the mysteries of navigation and sailing. He was just a boy when he embarked on his first voyages, venturing into the turquoise waters of the Aegean Sea. These early expeditions were the sparks that lit the flame of ambition in young Columbus, the same ambition that would later propel him to the edges of the known world. But Columbus was not just a dreamer, he was a visionary. He had an audacious plan, a plan to find a new route to the riches of Asia. In an era when the world was thought to be flat, Columbus dared to think round. He believed that by sailing west he could reach the east. But this dream, as enticing as it was not easy to sell. Columbus found himself in a struggle, not against the sea, but against the skepticism of his contemporaries. He was met with scoffs and dismissive glances whenever he presented his plan. The monarchs of Europe were hesitant to fund such a risky venture, but Columbus was not one to be easily discouraged. He knew that all he needed was one yes, one person willing to take a gamble on his dream. So, a man with a dream and a daring plan, Columbus set out to convince someone, anyone, to take a chance on him. Finally, in 1492, the Spanish monarchs, Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, agreed to sponsor Columbus's expedition. It was a time of anticipation, of excitement, and indeed of apprehension. The journey that lay ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but Columbus was a man of unwavering determination. The preparation for the voyage was a grand undertaking. Imagine the hustle and bustle of the Spanish ports as Columbus and his men readied themselves for the journey. 3 ships were to carry them across the vast and uncharted Atlantic: the Santa Maria, the Pinta, and the Nina. Each ship was meticulously outfitted, provisioned for a long voyage, and filled with a crew ready to embark on this daring adventure. As they set sail from Spain, the ships vanished over the horizon, leaving behind the familiar and venturing into the mysteries of the open sea. Their destination was Asia, a land of riches and spices, but the path they pursued was untraveled. It was a leap into the unknown, a voyage of discovery that was as much about the journey as it was about the destination. The challenges they faced were numerous. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The endless expanse of the sea was a constant reminder of their isolation. Food and water supplies dwindled, and the morale of the crew ebbed away. Doubts began to creep in, whispers of mutiny echoed through the ship's quarters, and yet, Columbus remained steadfast. But Columbus was not merely a navigator, he was a leader. He weathered the storm of dissent, quelled the unrest among his men, and kept their eyes focused on the horizon. He instilled in them the belief that they were on the cusp of something monumental, something that would change the course of history forever. The voyage was a test of endurance, of faith, and of courage. It was a journey that pushed the boundaries of exploration and challenged the known world. Against all odds, Columbus and his crew persevered, sailing into the great unknown. On October 12, 1492, Columbus made landfall, but it wasn't Asia. As the sun rose that morning, Columbus and his crew laid their eyes on an unfamiliar land, a place untouched by European hands. It was the Bahamas, a captivating archipelago now known to us, but then a mysterious new world to the weary voyagers. Columbus, however, was convinced he had reached the eastern shores of Asia, the land of silks and spices he had set out to find. The native people, the Arawaks, greeted the strange visitors with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. These inhabitants of the New World were unlike any the Europeans had ever seen. Their customs, their language, their appearance, everything was fascinatingly foreign. Columbus, still under the impression he was in Asia, dubbed these people Indians, a name that would stick for centuries to come. In the following weeks, Columbus and his crew explored the neighboring islands, each one as enchanting as the last. They marveled at the lush vegetation, the exotic animals, and the clear blue waters. They were astounded by the wealth of gold the natives wore and sought to claim it for Spain. Despite the beauty of this new world, Columbus was not content. He was driven by an insatiable thirst for gold and a burning ambition to claim new lands for his patrons, the Spanish monarchs. He enslaved many of the natives, forcing them to mine for gold, laying the groundwork for centuries of exploitation and colonization. After months of exploration, Columbus decided it was time to return to Spain. He left behind a small group of his men to establish a settlement and set sail for home with a ship full of gold and exotic goods. The voyage back was challenging, but they finally made it. When Columbus arrived, the Spanish court rejoiced. They hailed him as a hero, celebrating his successful voyage to what they believed was Asia. The promise of wealth and new lands to conquer filled the air. Columbus returned to Spain, a hero, having found a new route to Asia. Or so he thought. In fact, Columbus never did find a new route to Asia. Instead, he stumbled upon something far greater. This was not the East Indies he had set his compass towards, but an entirely new continent. A landmass untouched by European hands, a world now known as America. Columbus, the Italian explorer sailing under the Spanish flag, would return to this new world 4 times in all. Each voyage was filled with high hopes, fraught with danger, and ended in disappointment. His dream of finding vast riches in gold and spices was never realized. Instead, he encountered cultures and societies that were rich in their own right, but vastly different from what he knew. His downfall began when he was accused of mismanagement and cruelty during his 3rd voyage. In 1500, Columbus was arrested and returned to Spain in chains. Although he was eventually freed, his reputation was tarnished. He died in relative obscurity in 1506, never knowing the true extent of his discovery. The legacy of Christopher Columbus is a contentious one. On the one hand, he is hailed as the man who opened up the New World to European exploration and colonization, paving the way for the modern world as we know it. On the other hand, his voyages initiated a brutal era of conquest and colonization that decimated the indigenous populations of the Americas. His role in instigating the transatlantic slave trade is another dark stain on his legacy. Yet despite these controversies, there is no denying the monumental impact of his voyages. Columbus's journey across the Atlantic was a watershed moment in human history, marking the beginning of an era of global exploration, trade, and cultural exchange. Christopher Columbus, a man of dreams and daring, forever changed the course of history. But, like all men, he was flawed, leaving behind a legacy as complex as the man himself. This is the story of Columbus, a man whose dreams reshaped the world, for better or worse.